The Rufus Project would like to advise the following podcast contains spoilers for Tammy and the T-Rex from 1994. If you do not wish to have this movie spoiled, please watch it before listening to the following podcast. Is it a fascinating look at the early careers of some fairly well-known actors, or should it have been left in the Jurassic Age? We watched Tammy and the T-Rex from 1994 to see if we could redeem it. Were we successful? Find out after the theme.
Is it too good to be bad? So bad it's good. What's this movie? Do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features.
Boy? Oh boy.
Hello and welcome back to Season 5 of the Rufus Project. It's kind of insane, but it's also very, very cool. I am one of your hosts, Trevor Holland, and I am joined by my good friend and co-host...
Kristian Fletcher. Thank you so much, Trevor, for welcoming me back. And here was me thinking, it's up to our 4th season. Oh, that's right, it's been into Season 5. Gosh, can't believe we've managed to actually go through these many movies.
Absolutely, and as a bit of a change for Season 5, you may notice I just said The Rufus Project. Basically, The Rufus Project is about trying to redeem movies of questionable quality, so I figured that there's probably no need to actually include that in the intro, so it's just The Rufus Project, in this case, Tammy and the T-Rex, 1994.
Oh, hey, I think that works.
Yes, absolutely. And we actually have a very special guest with us. He's a writer, a film obsessive, a comedian, and host of Brisbane's Comedy Commentary Cinema, as well as a suggester of the movie for tonight's recording, Mr. Tim Burns. So, Tim, what else can you tell us about yourself? And welcome to the Rufus Project, and what inspired you to select Tammy and the T-Rex?
Oh, thanks for having me. I don't know, I think you covered everything pretty well there. I guess I'm everyone's favourite rascal.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this movie, Tammy and the T-Rex. So I stumbled upon a trailer for it last year, I think it was. It just appeared on my Facebook. As things tend to these days, you just scroll along and there's this very strange video, and I decided to have a look, and there was all kinds of weird things. It was just Denise Richards riding it on the back of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and Paul Walker was in there for a bit. It was just something that really captured me, and I had to check it out. And I don't know if life's gotten better or worse since seeing it, but I don't know. It's a ride. It's like riding a T-Rex.
Yeah. I mean, when I showed my wife the trailer of this, she decided on the spot not to watch it with me. But, you know, that's the way it goes. So, if anybody out there is wondering about Tammy and the T-Rex and what it's about, I've got a little synopsis here to bring everyone up to speed. An evil scientist implants the brain of Michael, a murdered high school student, into a Tyrannosaurus. He escapes, wreaks vengeance on his high school tormentors, and is reunited with his sweetheart Tammy.
Oh, what? That sounds like one of the greatest romantic films ever made, with a plot summary like that. But yeah, I can see now why it stood out to both of you, I suppose, as being maybe good fodder for the Rufus Project.
Until Tim suggested this, I was actually unaware of this movie, and then I just was going through going, this is insane. Just from the trailers and everything, and trying not to prejudge it, but it's just like, what is this?
Well, yeah, not knowing much about the history, I was wondering a lot too if it was, it feels very much like a direct-to-VHS movie. I doubt this would have played cinemas in the early 90s.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, actually. I didn't see anything about it being straight to video or anything, and this would have been the right era for that sort of thing. So who knows? I haven't seen any VHS copies lying around or anything.
Well, you actually, interesting segue there. I think it's one, I don't know if I'm going off an idea in my head, but I do remember seeing it on eBay for more than a couple of $100 on VHS, so it's one of those titles. I think probably just for the insanity of owning the title and Denise Richards on the front cover riding a Tyrannosaurus Rex. That must be the appeal.
No, I can see why it's got a high price.
I did see a copy of it on VHS on Amazon, but it was sold out, so they didn't actually have the price up there.
Yeah, it's not exactly an easy movie to find. Like, I know Tim and I have laughed about we should one day screen this movie for our comedy cinema night, but unfortunately only bad copies sort of exist on YouTube, and it's a very hard movie to see, but we're lucky we're able to see what we can of this movie.
Indeed. So, funny enough, like we do like to talk about any awards that movies may have received, be they genuine or not so genuine. This one, there's nothing. There's nothing at all. Not even a raspberry in sight or a stinker award. It's just nothing.
That was a perfect opportunity because, Trevor, we've always laughed in the past how they have raspberry awards for, I don't know, the best combination of animal and person in one shot or something like that. This seems to be the perfect way to have created a dinosaur-esque award, but wasted opportunity, Razzies.
Mm-hmm.
The closest I've got here is his last movie, the director's last film. He wrote a film called Passenger 57, which is an action film with Wesley Snipes, and that was #1 in the box office on opening weekend. So that's the closest to awards that we've got for this guy.
I can't believe he managed to redeem himself. How does one go in and pitch a movie when Tammy and the T-Rex is the only thing on their resume?
Yeah. Oh, this one was before it, actually. So this.
Oh, really? Oh.
But also, this guy's big claim to fame. So this director is named, I think we'll know the name, Stuart Raphael. No? He directed and wrote Mac and Me.
Oh, interesting segue. Oh, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
This puts a whole new spin on the movie.
Oh, he's right up there with the creature feature.
Yeah, it's like, after learning that, I was like, this movie makes a bit more sense now. It's still insane, but I get it a bit more.
Definitely ties in a lot better anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're looking at some other trivia about this. I mean, well, our turkey trivia, where we talk turkey and trivia about the movie. Now, it's rated 3.4 out of 10 on IMDb, and the only budget information I could find was a reference to it being a low-budget movie, probably a low-budget movie. But I did find interesting, because I didn't realise this until after I'd watched it, and I suspected that something like this existed. But there is an Italian version of this movie which is just apparently absolutely full of violence and gore, and that has never had an English release.
So did that come before Tammy and the T-Rex or after?
I think it was probably filmed initially as a horror movie. I mean, we'll get into it as we talk about it, but like a lot of times you'll see the T-Rex starting to do something to someone and then cut away very sharply, as if it's like something's been snipped out of that.
Yeah, I
so
noticed
I'm thinking that they may have initially wanted to go for like a really gory, like comedy horror, but then change their mind. I don't know. We'll get it as we go along.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so I was good to think that my thought that there was a much gorier version out there. I was glad to get some justification.
Yeah.
We'll discuss some of those parts that come up. As they come up.
Awesome. And that's basically all the trivia I could find. So there you go.
Oh yeah, well, I guess the most interesting thing about the film itself, Denise Richards and Paul Walker.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Like I don't know where it fits into their careers. Was it the first film for both of them?
Oh, yeah, I'm not too sure. It was 1994 it was released. And Denise Richards, she was huge in the 90s.
I know, sort of more in the late 90s. So maybe this was her stepping stone, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Well, she had done a lot of TV prior to this, just appearing in various roles. I mean, she was in Saved by the Bell. She was appeared in some episodes of Married with Children. Doogie Howser, Beverly Hills 90210. She appeared in an episode of Seinfeld. She was in... Well, she did have a movie credit before this in Loaded Weapon 1.
Oh, gosh, can't
I
forget
don't know
that.
if many people remember that particular spoof of Lethal Weapon.
Oh, yeah, so she was
Good
doing
time.
things... But it's funny that you mentioned a lot of that TV stuff, because that's what this feels like. I know you mentioned the horror elements, which we'll talk about, but it did have that real feel of being something that would be on daytime TV at 12 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon or something like that. That real sort of made-for-TV feel. So it sounds like it was definitely in her realm doing a movie like this, as strange as it is.
And again, same with Paul Walker. Just having a quick look through, he was very much a TV person on this. I mean, going back through, it's pretty much all TV for him until 1994's Tammy and the T-Rex.
And then they still give him a pretty small role, which we will get to. So calling him, we say one of the stars, but yeah, the poor guy didn't get much of a break for his first movie. But anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah, indeed.
And then he had like a 4-year break from film, and then his return to screen, his triumphant return was Meet the Deedles.
Oh wow! So yeah, so that seems to meet. That sort of fits next to Tammy and the T-Rex on a resume, I suppose.
Yeah. He certainly worked his way up. Let's put it that way.
Hey, well, they got Dennis Hopper as a dad in that film.
Yeah, true.
Well, there you
There we go. Nice. Well, we probably should move on now. On the Rufus project, as we've said, we do like to try to see if we can redeem a movie, but we're honest about it. You know, we'll watch it. We'll see if we can find redeeming features and see what our opinion is at the end. But we do need to set ourselves a baseline. And so, with that in mind, I've dug a review up that I think encapsulates the lower end of the spectrum, I suppose you could say, with people that have seen this movie. The title of this one is The Worst Teen Movie Ever Made. If Ed Wood would make a teen movie, this one would be it. The idea of a mad scientist putting a teenage boy's brain inside an animatronic T-Rex is dumb and a very bad idea. This movie is terrible. Without doubt, the worst teen movie ever made. 0 out of 10.
Wow.
Oh, so definitely not a fan there.
No, absolutely not.
0. How much lower can you get?
Well, because there were very few. I normally go to Amazon, which doesn't let you go below 1, but there were very few reviews on Amazon, so I had to dig a bit deeper to find that one. And it was just like 0 out of 10 was what they let you do on IMDb. There you go.
And this seems a movie that probably would be a bit short on reviews because not too many people would have seen it. So well done finding that. It can only go up or sideways from here, or even worse.
Very true. Even. I don't know if we should aim for negatives, but we'll see what we do. No, what I like to do when first watching these movies is my first impression is normally based on the running time. So anything that under 90 minutes automatically makes me feel a bit better.
Oh, I know. Especially with a movie with a title like this, you go, if it's so bloody ridiculous that I can't stand it, at least it's not too long.
True. And then the title card comes up and just gives it all away immediately. It's like there's a shot of Denise Richards on the T-Rex with Tammy and the T-Rex around it. Thinking,
No, I think
spoilers.
Oh no, and there's something about that shot that's just like, because I know they do end up using that shot later in the movie, which we'll get to, of course. But if something, look, I'm a pretty bad person at designing anything poster-wise, but I think on Photoshop or some kind of program, I could do a better job than that title card. That was just ridiculous.
Well, it looked like it was all stolen a bit from Saved by the Bell, those title cards, actually.
Yeah, I thought they did look very very TV family friendly special, which I think may be an indication of probably the first sign that a few changes were made for the general release of this movie.
Oh yeah, and like it seems to be like I screen a lot of movies from the 90s, and there seems to be an obligatory opening cheerleader practice scene, and but for some reason, dare I say it, actually the first movie that came to my mind was Buffy the Vampire Slayer from 1992, and even I'm not saying it was a good opening, but it was so much better than this. Something really annoyed me about them going go Panthers, and it was out of time with the backing music. So it's like they were clapping out of time completely. Okay, fair enough. I know it would have been added in later, but I found it really distracting. And on top of that, we were talking about the opening credits, but I've noticed in movies they're usually very considerate, and if someone's face is on the screen, they don't put the credit right over the top of it. No, they didn't mind with this. They just went for it.
And that song. Dinosaur Man. I tried to look at the lyrics and I couldn't find them anywhere, but that was something. That was something.
Yeah, there's something to be said about using the really obvious. Okay, I thought to myself, okay, every song's going to have some sort of dinosaur reference. I was waiting for Walk the Dinosaur too, by the way. Spoilers, it's not there. Sorry, Tim, I should get you to have you can't fit a word in.
That's all good, but yeah, you're right. Walk the Dinosaur, it's probably way too out of their budget.
Oh, exactly. Considering I think probably the only thing their budget would have gone to was the dinosaur itself. I don't think anything else really got a look in. So, but the soundtrack, and I think I even saw at the end credits. Pretty much most of the songs were "Dinosaur Man" or "I'm going to turn into an animal" or songs like that. They were all very obvious.
Yeah, I remember listening to a few of the songs, and I was like, they're basically just describing the feelings of the characters. Like they're not. Like, I think I've ever seen one where it was like, oh no, your heart is broken, but you'll get over it, it's all good.
But she'll get over it because you'll have a dinosaur for a boyfriend.
Darn straight.
Pretty much every song just sounded like John Cougar Mellencamp to me, so I don't know. Especially that opening song, so...
I love the cool electric guitar solos. It was radical.
But
totally tubular.
But I know Trevor and I often speak about how movies take a little bit to get into it. But yeah, this one didn't waste any time. Automatically, we've seen Denise Richards in that opening shot, but Paul Walker walks straight in, and yeah, they don't waste any time showing us the people, I suppose, that are the draw card for this film.
Yeah, I was actually wondering if maybe they cut the budget by giving everyone shirts that were slightly too small for them, because from that start through to Paul Walker, I'm thinking, is everyone showing off their midriff in this movie? And then in comes the cool camp dude in the caftan.
Oh, I've got here. Unfortunately, I hate having to write it, but the token African American gay character. It just seemed to be something that they felt like they had to put in this movie and utilize at every opportunity.
Yep.
Well, they wanted diversity in the movie, and they were like, well, we can't afford too much, we'll just put in the one person.
Oh, I mean, they did have his dad as a sheriff, so I guess they did have more than just the one token black guy.
Yeah, but
which is impressive for sort of movie.
Though, about the two black characters, their surnames are black.
I know.
That's true.
I couldn't believe when they said Sheriff Black. It was almost like they were half expecting to go, but and no one in the audience would have thought that. So
it wasn't like Blazing Saddles, where it's like a black sheriff.
but it's funny that you mentioned the midriffs, Trevor, because look, I can't remember much about early '90s fashion, but I still don't think we were wearing guys were wearing midriff shirts still in that time. I feel bad saying it, but it almost feels like Paul Walker was just begging to be picked on by the bully.
You're exposing too much belly. Ugh.
Yep. I was trying to work out if that fight they end up having, because Denise Richards' Tammy has a psycho ex-boyfriend, which we find out very, very quickly, which is why she can't accept his yellow rose. Oh no!
So he'll just eat it instead.
Oh yes, because that's hilarious.
We're setting up for something later. Sorry.
Yeah. And then they're like, was that a fight or a wrestling match? I was trying to work it out. It was kind of started off with some choreography and just ended up with them falling over each other and ending with that crotch grab scene that just couldn't stop.
The testicle standoff, I believe it was called by one of the police officers.
Yeah,
that is true.
I just love that. I've got it written down here. You let go of that boy's gonads. But I think it was at this, because I think from this moment up until this moment, you'd assumed this movie was just a bad TV movie. But as soon as this stuff started happening and you had the cops doing their sort of 2 cents worth, it made me realise that, okay, this is going to take the piss out of itself. It's a real tongue-in-cheek movie. And I think I then sort of sat back and let it happen a bit more. I wasn't going to criticise as much.
It wasn't until that match I didn't realise that, like when she said that they can't be together and can't accept the rose, I thought she was like talking about her dad or something. And then this boyfriend showed up. It's like, oh, okay. So I wasn't too clear on it at the start, but... You know, you got the idea when they grabbed each other's testicles.
Yeah.
And of course, because we've got to take a token gay character, every reference to balls there has to be a shot of him going, ooh, ah, ooh. I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, hell, we're not even 5 minutes into this movie.
Yeah, or at least being made in 1994 with the whole rose thing and her rejecting the rose, you know, at least we didn't have to put up with the bachelor gag.
Oh, God, yeah, because they would have milked that, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's pretty much, like, I know we don't necessarily want to do a recap of the movie, but, like, there's just so much to say, but I think it's pretty much from here that we start to meet the dinosaur and the scientist and the idea that's going to start taking place.
Yes, I did wonder, like, in the whole scene where they're controlling the dinosaur with a computer, basically as a puppet, and Dr. Watchenstein,
something like that,
just hamming it up, and the main thing I was wondering was just like everything was fine for a bit, and then towards the end, someone just turned on a smoke machine. I was just wondering where that kind of thinking, okay, I've been watching this dinosaur, where's that smoke coming from? No, I don't care about the dinosaur, is something on fire? What's going on?
Maybe they didn't intend there to be a gas part of the dinosaur. They weren't working that out. But I couldn't believe, the whole time I'm wondering, why have they just got this little kid at the controls with glasses? Like, I don't know, because we see him come into this later on when there's a big showdown. You see him appear again when they're in the car, but I don't know if the whole gag was supposed to be, oh, how funny, you've got a little kid who's supposed to be the scientist. So that was just quite bizarre. And of course a weightlifter on hand, just in case we need to test those strong movements.
That was great. Yeah, he just gets what was it? First it was the weights, and then it was the log he bites in half.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, yep.
But I don't know.
Him.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I was looking at it wrong, but I'm sure they say right leg and it kicked with its left. They didn't get the right side. They might have just been doing it for our benefit, being on the right side. But I don't know about you guys, but they were going through all the different parts of the dinosaur and how ferocious it looked. But it's really kind of hard to make dinosaur arms look foreboding. And I think it was something that we kind of established early on, because there's different parts that we obviously see that he always uses it to, like, you know, do the finger or scratch the side of his head or whatever. But I don't know, for early on we sort of saw that he had some limitations.
Yeah, it was just, when he picked up the weight-lift, I was just like, his arms look really weird. And it turns out that they're completely different colours. I'm guessing they put on some sort of gloves or something to whenever they needed longer arms in a shot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, there's these weirdly, you know, dexterous arms for a T-Rex that just turned up suddenly and just hung uselessly at every other shot. Every other time we actually saw a frontal shot with the arms, like they were doing nothing. And so when they had to do something, it was always just like a close-up of just the arms, so that they could actually manipulate stuff.
Yeah, so already we were seeing it wasn't too scary.
Every now and again, it'll be like a shot of the T-Rex's head, and then the arms will come up in there, but they'll make sure that his actual arms aren't in the shot. So things like when he's doing the charades later on with Denise Richards to tell him who he is.
Oh,
yeah. And of course, those arms, you know, you see the general shot, those arms aren't long enough, you know, to probably even reach the T-Rex model's mouth.
It's like maybe they came up with the idea for this movie, and then as they were into production, they were realizing, oh no, we can't really do much with its arms. So hence a lot of stomping and and grabbing people with its mouth instead. Oh gosh, it's just so easy just to go through everything bizarre that we see in this movie. But I know. So we pretty much meet the dinosaur, and then later on we've got I think Paul Walker is at his house. He's at his house, and Denise Richards is at hers, and I think he rings her, or she rings him, and there's that whole, oh, I want to see you.
Yeah, she rings him.
Did you guys happen to notice that Paul Walker's bedroom has a camera just set up looking outside the blinds? I'm like, you're obviously a bird watcher or a peeping Tom.
I was too distracted by the terrible taste of music his character had, and then the equally as bad phone ring that his phone has.
The use of phones in this movie. It just seems like that's the only way that Denise Richards could communicate with her family, either that or behind a door. But
it was like she had her own phone line in her room, because I think at one point her dad phones her in her room from downstairs.
But you guys do know that that's because she dropped her dictionary.
Yeah, she was studying.
But I had to love how I love how she's rings Paul Walker and says, oh, come over and see me now, and just don't park out front. But he still parks out front just a meter down.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what she was getting at. Maybe not that close. And
he goes up to the driveway and then reverses a little bit. He's like, oh, that's right, don't park right up front. A meter back's fine.
Yeah. But then when he comes out later, because inevitably a couple of the girls from the gang, from the ex-boyfriend, rolls by, and he gets sprung. Yeah. But I did notice when he jumped back out and is running down the street, there's no sign of his car. It's just gone.
That's what I'm thinking, because I watched it with my friend, and I'm like, wouldn't it have been quicker for him to have taken the time and actually got in his car and driven rather than running from these guys driving? Quite strange, but I was just more baffled by how convenient that the girls happened to drive past just as he's shimmering up the trellis. But they wouldn't have a movie, I suppose. And I think Denise yells after him, you don't want to end up in jail again. And I'm thinking, maybe she wasn't maybe he's not the right guy for you.
I'm still trying to figure out how that relationship even started.
Oh, they have to have a relationship like this for a movie like this to exist. So they have some kind of antagonist.
There was a vague... She dated her briefly, and he wasn't nice, so she doesn't want to see him anymore. I think there was even a thing about there was a restraining order or something when he burst into the house. The dad goes, "Don't forget your restraining order, Billy." Meanwhile, Billy is shouting at the top of his lungs about how much he's going to kill Michael. So it's like, anything that happens to Michael, Billy is automatically the main suspect, but it doesn't really seem to matter much.
But I do love when Billy does run down the stairs to chase Michael or Paul Walker. Paul Walker's just standing in the driveway. I'm like, dude, wouldn't you have run away as soon as you knew the bad guys were here? It's like, oh, wait in the driveway for them to catch him to see I'm here.
Oh, but remember, Michael's not scared of Billy. He says that at least 6 times, I think, even in the opening sequence.
He's probably just like, oh, he'll grab my balls again. I'll be able to take it.
He's wearing his cup. That's right. That's how he won.
Oh, that's right. But I love how the disappointment in Billy's face when he realizes, oh, he had a cup on, and I'm like, dude, surely you would have anyway.
I do want to go back to the dad though. I remember the very first scene you see him after Paul Walker's climbed up the trellis to meet Denise Richards, which, weirdly enough, is that all trellises were used for in the 90s? Just to climb up and meet your girlfriend? I'm not sure. And it's always conveniently next to the girl's bedroom. But anyways, I remember they're getting hot and heavy, getting some heavy petting in, and then it cuts out and goes to the dad, and he's sipping from a cup of tea, and he goes, "Ooh, that's hot."
Well, oh yes, that was very subtle.
It's funny you say that, because they do occasional. They try and do gags like that running throughout the whole thing, and as we see later on with the bumbling sheriffs or the deputies or whatever, especially in reference to the gay character, it kind of was bordering on a bit offensive, pretty much.
That's right. They're at that crime scene, and he says, "Don't bend over."
Or if you drop something, don't pick it up.
That's right.
Oh no! But and of course, so it pretty much ends up with they track Mike. They end up catching up with Michael and locking him in the trunk, and then I'm assuming they've broken into a one of those, zoos or something. Do you know how we have those? You know how they have those ones where you drive your car through? I had a feeling it was one of those.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, it's just got but like I'm pretty sure you don't want to have lions and panthers in the same paddock. That seems like a bad idea to me for any sort of nature reserve or drive-through zoo.
Oh, definitely. And of course, the only tree he happens to go up has a panther in it. You're like, dude, you're running out of luck. It's that midriff shirt. but and then it seems funny that the warden, what's the game warden or whatever, appears straight away to shoot the lion, and it's almost like, I don't know. I thought they would have got a bit more warning earlier that I don't know, there sort of would be some kind of alarm system. I don't know. I actually thought at first that they were breaking into the scientific area where the scientists...
That's actually what I thought as well.
Yeah, and I thought that's how it was going to eventuate. But I actually think, Tim, we're thinking better than what the movie people even thought. So.
Yeah. Well, it would have probably been better if they did do that, because that would have gone past the unnecessary CPR scene.
Oh
gosh, because I think we go to hospital next. But sorry, Trevor, what were you...
Yeah, no, I was thinking, like, that was probably the first time that I thought that this movie may have been a bit nastier than it originally was, because when they actually do have the lion attack Michael, it's like, wow, that's actually a pretty nasty looking lion attack. It seems to be out of place with every other bit of ridiculousness I've seen in this movie so far. But then, yeah, they go to the hospital the next day where he's in a coma or whatever, and it's nice to see that Tammy Tammy and Byron, they really got dressed up for visiting the hospital.
Yeah.
Oh, I had to love... I don't know, there's something from what I remember about the early 90s is what she was wearing seemed like the epitome of 90s fashion. You know, the hat with the flower on the front? I'm like, oh no, it was like deja vu.
Yeah, the blossom hat, and he was wearing that sort of... I don't know how to describe it, really. It's what they always put on the black character. It's a very traditional African clothes with all the African patterns and everything.
Yeah, I think he was still in his fancy caftan.
Yeah, that's it.
Trying to remind us all the time that he's the token African American character. but yeah, it's interesting you say that, Trevor, because as I said, I watched it with somebody else, and that attack looked quite, full on. And the next thing we see him lying there, pretty much not wounded, in a coma with what looks like a smile on his face.
Yeah, I think there was a slight bruise, like drawn, like makeup on the side of his face. It's the only sign of his injury. Yeah,
I don't know much about lion attacks, but from what we saw, you think, I think there'd be more effect than what was there. So I thought that was quite strange. So I'm wondering if they've gone and reshot that to make it tamer, or they just thought no one would notice.
Yeah, and oh god, and when Dr. Wachenstein, how do you pronounce it? And I can't remember the woman's name. Helga.
Yeah.
Yes, Helga turns up. And I think even in the mid-90s, it's like, I'm pretty sure he can't just walk through a hospital smoking.
Yeah.
But that was just his character affectation, so they couldn't mess with that.
Oh, and of course they had to make the gag go even further.
If that was legal.
Well, that's the thing. They had to make the gag go even further and then give the cigarette to the doctor, who puffs along and walks away. Because I noticed there's a couple of times, I think later on, I think in the next scene when they're putting the brain in... Oh, spoilers! Putting the brain into the dinosaur. I think he was
having a chuff then.
Yeah, I'm just going to call him the scientist because I can't say that name, Trevor.
Okay, yeah. The mad Hemi scientist.
So yeah, I noticed he was pretty much smoking all the time, so that was his kind of sight gag. Ha ha ha.
And Helga's sight gag was to show a lot of cleavage and wear a short skirt. That's a meaningful character, I suppose.
She had to be, the traditional sidekick. I suppose there's been a lot of things that have parodied that, but I for some reason, I could just imagine Lisa Kudrow playing that part the whole time. It just seemed to be something really suited to her. But let's not. Oh God, don't bring on a remake. but then I love how she's at the hospital, and then of course I know Billy's guilty. I mean, I know, he sort of taken him out to the line and all that, but I thought it was weird that Billy and his gang would actually turn up to the hospital to to see what's happened. Thought they'd keep a low profile, but then Tammy starts going all kung fu on him, and it's just all weird.
Yeah.
With
Hits him in the throat.
his guardian just passed out on the chair.
Well, this was one of those moments when I turned to the person next to me and said, Of course Michael's guardian has to be drunk, otherwise there'd be no movie, because I'm like, there'd be no way for them to be able to just take the body. And of course, I think when he wakes up from his drunken stupor, I think she's like pulling him out of the bed and he just falls back asleep. So I'm like, God, there always has to be the drunken guardian, otherwise there'd be no movie.
It explains why there's not a lot of stuff in Michael's room.
Yeah, true. True.
So I think, so they pretty much kidnap him and... I love when they go to the part where they're about to start operating, and I love how he's not out, and he keeps waking up, and we've got to put him out, and pretty much Helga punches him. Oh, cool, he's fine enough for the operation, and manages to last the whole time.
I think it's only the kid who he wears glasses, so he must be the one that's good with computers. That's basically, I think, the entire justification for him being the computer guy. I think he's the only one who says, you got to give him brain trauma or whatever, and they just ignore him.
Yeah, for a
What
scientist,
do you know,
that guy knows nothing. But I just was just quite surprised at how easy it is to attach a brain to a dinosaur. Just the way that they showed it was almost like something you could imagine on an infomercial. It was so easy.
Yeah, just put it in a bowl of some green goop and put some pins in.
Yeah, and don't forget that while you are taking a brain out of a person, to have a shot of the beefiest, muscliest, manliest man there, looking like he's about to throw up. I don't think it was necessary to actually have him throw up, though. That seemed a bit much.
I had a feeling that actor was relishing anything he got given. He probably even asked, could he do that?
Yeah. Well, considering he didn't have a lot more screen time left, I suppose. Yeah, anything he could get, he would take. But
I thought it was funny because it felt like at first that they pretty much used the bodybuilder, as a way to show how strong the dinosaur was. And every time he kept coming back, I'm like, "Are you their bodyguard?" I suppose he was, but I don't know. He just always seemed to be there.
Well, he was a token muscly guy.
Yeah, they have to have that.
There's no reason for him to be there.
He's just an intern.
Well, pretty much. And even we laugh and joke, but the good thing is the movie hasn't sort of lagged in pace. Like they've set up all of this because we know that it's going to eventuate in, the dinosaur wreaking havoc on the town or doing some things and hopefully getting some bad guys back. So by this point I was glad that it hadn't been excruciating, like it had been fun.
Yeah, you can't deny that it moves at a fast pace. It doesn't. There's not much where it drags on with stuff, except there's more coming up.
Yeah. I think. Well, what probably before I'd seen this in full for the podcast, I had watched it a couple of times before. Not all the way through, but one scene that always stood out to me was the party scene. So I always get excited when this scene comes up because we know this is probably the first time the dinosaur is going to be seen. And oh gosh, if that was the epitome of the 90s, even more so. But those dance moves that they were doing, and the guy with the army hat on that had to be, it was like he was the token fool at the party that had to be seen doing the dance moves and trying to crack onto that girl.
Yeah, but I mean, that was the night of Michael allegedly dying in the hospital. And it's like, why is Tammy at a party when her boyfriend just died?
Oh, yeah. I know. I was so surprised, and it's like, that's the thing. My friend next to me said, oh, yeah, but she's going to get her mind off it. I said, yeah, but if you're going to get your mind off it, you don't sit there in the corner with a turtleneck, folding your arms, about to bawl the whole night. It's obviously still close to home. But, yeah, I wasn't thinking it was as close as the night that he died. But, it makes it even weirder.
I was trying to work out who the friend was. Like, she was sitting there with this female friend, and I was like, who the hell is that? Where'd she come from? Is that her mum? I don't know.
But then I thought,
Just
so I was looking a bit deeper into it, and I thought, oh, maybe Tammy's one of those people that she doesn't want to piss off the cool people at school, so she has to be seen at being at the party. Even though her boyfriend's just died and is about to kill everybody.
yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Like, because before that, I mean, they think that he's going to be unconscious. He comes awake. We get to see the glove of him holding the mirror up to his face.
Oh,
and
which happens to be there.
trying to use a phone, but then he's like, you get the shot of him stepping on the beefcake guy, and that's what I'm thinking. Did he just flat out murder that guy in 2 seconds flat? I wasn't too sure. And then he gets to the party, it's like, okay, he is killing people. This has taken a whole new turn.
Yeah.
That I really wasn't
Fair to the first
expecting at
victim
this
at the
stage.
party, though. He was peeing on the dinosaur.
He wasn't very considerate.
True.
He goes, "Who put this thing here?" Okay, so if you go to someone's house for a party and see a statue, who put that there? Do you start peeing on it? But it was interesting, Trevor, because I had a note around that time too, going, for a movie that was kind of, I don't know if lighthearted's the word, but it's kind of got that feel of being quite fun and a bit silly, and then to come along pretty much with essentially a head-crushing scene. I think he goes to crush the head and it cuts away. And it's kind of, even though you could say it's leaving it to our imagination, well, you don't kind of have to think too much to know what's going to happen from that. So, it was like they have sort of toned it down, and you think when they get to the party, and things like the guy peeing and them scratching the front of his chest, like, that is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly when I started thinking, there is actually a version of this, or they filmed a version of this where it basically turned into a full-on horror movie at this point in time, which again is just so, because up to this point it seemed to be like, this funny, quirky, romantic teen comedy, and now the main character is in a T-Rex and is flat out crushing,
Murdering people.
eviscerating, and biting the heads off people.
Oh, I know.
And a leg. I remember there was a leg bitten off as well.
Oh yeah, biting the leg off a girl
Yeah.
that just happened to be in the car making out with Billy.
But that said, like, I know I shouldn't support what he was doing, but there were some characters that I'm like, okay, I want them to get to really suffer or have a good death scene. But it just seemed like Billy. I think we see a shot of him getting lifted up by his head, and I think that's all we ever see of him. So we don't sort of see what happens. Again, Trevor, that could be another thing that because I think Billy being the main sort of antagonist, I think he would have had a scene where he was, completely mauled up. So, it is quite interesting, but it's like they just wanted to sell it using the Denise Richards on a dinosaur. How cute is this?
Yeah, oh look, it's so funny and quirky. Forget that. No, take that bit. The bit where the guy gets his chest ripped open. Take it out.
Oh, I know. And then, but then you've got later on. It seems like they've tried to add I talked about the bumbling sort of deputies. It's like they've added them in to kind of take the edge off with things. Oh, he's like pushing. I think he's got a ruler or a stick prodding at the guy, and the other guy's he's squeamish. It's like they were trying to make it more funny or something, and trying to not realize how brutal it had been. I don't know.
Yeah, I think at one point they were there investigating the scene, and I'm guessing they were over Billy, and they're sort of saying, "Okay, what's that over there? Oh, it's his nose." It's like, what?
Yeah, it's like, oh, but meanwhile, the other guy's just poking it and talking about how he wants to take him somewhere, or to take him hunting and make him gut a deer. And I'm like, we don't really need this deputy small talk. It's kind of not going anywhere. But actually, that reminded me. I think it was just before the dinosaur attacked the party. I had to laugh how the ground starts shaking and the girl goes, "Maybe it's a dinosaur."
It's like, oh, yeah, like how.
So this movie's very sure of itself, even if it gets a bit brutal in some parts.
Very true. But I think that town, like there was a lot of people at the party, but I think that must have been most of the town, because what was it, Michael?
Yep.
That was Paul Walker. Yeah, Michael, as the T-Rex, can actually walk across the town from wherever that party was to Tammy's house in broad daylight and no one sees him.
I know. Oh, I couldn't believe it either. And you think after the party, and okay, fair enough, the deputies are a bit dumb, but you think after the party there would be some kind of lockdown or they'd be on the lookout for things. Not just letting a T-Rex just walk down the street. But again, I don't think they'd have their movie.
Yeah, and I got even when the scientist and Helga get back to the lab to find out he's escaped and find the beefcake flat on the ground. It's just like, oh, look at that, he's being flattened. Let's just drag him inside. Because
But she was starting to roll him up as well at one stage.
Pardon, Sam.
Sorry?
I'm sure that she started trying to roll the beefcake's flattened corpse up at one stage.
Oh, she did.
She did.
And did you guys even notice too? She went to roll it up, and when she got a bit of blood on her fingers, she licked them.
Unhygienic.
But it was like, okay, haha, it's funny, he got squashed, so let's roll him up. But it was obvious it was just plastic that they've used for the prop, and I'm like, okay, guys, maybe this should have been cut out. But that's the thing. There'd be things like that would like, I appreciate when the humour's a bit more subtle, but when it's just so outright ludicrous like that. But I suppose in a movie where they put a brain into a dinosaur, what can you expect? But as you were saying, Trevor, he seems to get around quite easily, and I don't know about you. Like, fair enough, he'd be interested in seeing his funeral, but maybe turning up at the funeral's not. I think I'm jumping a few scenes ahead, but turning up at your own funeral's probably a bit risky.
I like that he was crying at his own funeral as well. Like,
oh yes,
this looks like water's pouring out of the dinosaur's eyes.
But there's a comment made later about, he can't bleed because he's fake or whatever. Like, I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't know if he'd be able to cry, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think he should have probably short-circuited something because they do point out a few. I mean, they don't point out very often, but every now and then they point out that it's a robot dinosaur and not actually flesh and blood. But I did find, like, just before the funeral where we get to see Michael doing charades as a T-Rex and eating the rose to convince Tammy who he is. She accepts it quite quickly and easily. It's just like, she's all panicky, and then suddenly it's like, oh, it's Michael. Okay, I'll caress your tooth line.
Oh, that was good. Let's just hope there's no extra cut that has them like more stuff in the barn, because that was already creepy. But she seemed to accept it. For her, I noticed the turning point was, oh, you know Michael? Oh, cool. I've talked to this dinosaur. You know. But look, I've played some pretty shocking some pretty interesting games of charades in the past, and I must say that dinosaur's actually one of the best I've ever actually seen. I was surprised I'm surprised she got rain from him just waving his arms around.
That's the connection. That Tammy and Michael. It's obviously meant to be. So they've got that. I can't go on with that thought. That's just ridiculous.
I don't think they were even thinking that much about it. But I love how I think it was in that scene in the barn. But she's like, I thought I'd never see you again, and it kind of made me think, well, you're kind of not seeing him again. This is weird.
It just doesn't seem to matter, as long as it's Michael, it doesn't matter, which, again, we will come back to a bit later on.
Because we realise they want to actually steal a body at the funeral.
Yeah, but then it's like, why is a fresh grave with a fresh coffin, the coffin was full of rats.
Oh, I
don't understand why there was just suddenly rats everywhere that had obviously eaten off half of his face. That doesn't happen.
Because usually the funeral's only within a week of them dying, so...
just like, I'm not sure how the rats got in the coffin at all, but yeah, it is really weird that... I mean, it must have taken a while for the funeral to happen, but it doesn't seem that long.
But what I thought was interesting, that considering they actually sculpted him or cut his head open to get the brain, have you noticed pretty much it was just the face that was weird? Like the whole face had been cut off?
Yeah.
Yes. But this is like the next day. This is the next day. There's not a week, it's not 2 weeks, it's the next day. They take him, they put his brain into here, they take him to the hospital, they put the brain in the dinosaur escapes that night, goes on a rampage and a murder spree at the party, and this is the next day.
Yeah, and there's still even, I think this is around the time where, yeah, oh, yes, right, her parents are worried about her, and she comes home from the barn. That's right, when she's been in the barn with Michael or Dinosaur, and she's all spinning around going, I'm so happy, and I'm thinking to myself, you're taking this really well. I don't think you'd process it and be really cool with it that quickly. Because a lot has happened in 24 hours.
I am very, very concerned about Tammy and anyone who has to associate with her.
Even the T-Rexes.
One of the things I still never understood, and none of the scenes really make it too clear, but why does he use a robot dinosaur? Like, I know the scientist, Dr. Whatever, I guess. That was pretty close, to be honest.
Yeah, it's close enough. It'll do.
Because I think why does he start doing why is he doing these experiments, I suppose? Is that what you're...
Yeah, like, I know he says he wants to make people immortal to live in robot bodies, but why a dinosaur robot body? That doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah, maybe the people that wanted to make this movie, they did a call out, and the only prop that came forward as a donation was a dinosaur, so they had to make a movie around it.
And I don't think the title Tammy and the Terrapin quite has the same ring.
Oh, it could work. I could see a whole franchise.
God!
But I think
I did notice though. I did notice that. So this was released in 1994. The year before, 1993, the big hit was Jurassic Park. And so I'm kind of wondering if that was like a second-hand prop from it, or if they were actually trying to capitalize on the dinosaur craze that resulted from Jurassic Park. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, I do get that. Yeah, I see where you're coming from there, because, yeah, I believe I saw a reference to something about there was like it was done almost as a parody of Jurassic Park in a way, but I never really got that feeling from this movie, which is why I didn't bother mentioning it earlier.
I was thinking it was more like the mockbusters of Asylum, where it's like, hey, this one's got robots in it, just like Transformers. Just the exact same thing, almost.
Well, I do remember as a kid, I think it always goes through every sort of 10 years in every generation, but there was a real dinosaur phase, even sort of before Jurassic Park. So I don't know, I think it was a real early 90s thing too.
I'm thinking maybe that the screenwriters wrote this after watching Jurassic Park and taking a hell of a lot of cocaine.
I think, yeah, good. And I think the idea was, let's do it as a parody rather than well, actually, if we go off the whole fact that it was a bit horrific in some places, maybe the cocaine did come in handy for them.
No, there's going to be murder. They're going to rip off someone's dick. God!
Oh god. Well, it's pretty much. It's funny. Funny you mentioned the grave side. Of course, they have to have the visual gag of then everybody falling into the grave by accident. Ha ha ha.
Yes, oh.
On top of this really horrifying corpse as well.
And all the rats. Let's look at the rats.
That just came from nowhere. But it's pretty much from here, like, because this being a short movie, yeah, I think I don't know if you guys were the same, but I'm like, how are they going to resolve this? What is the end going to be of this? So we pretty much start to go into the.
Oh yeah, that point made me wonder where they could go from there.
Yeah, to the morgue.
Yeah,
obviously.
That's where it went.
The morgue. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think it's as easy to walk in, just stroll in. I love how they just walk into the it's literally like a really bad filmmaker's perfect scene. Just walking in with a sign saying morgue, open the door, walk in, and we're in there. No pressure at all.
This is a town with three policemen as its entire police force, and maybe about 30 or 40 population all up. I'm surprised they had that many bodies in the morgue. But for such a short movie, this scene went on for such a long time.
Now, I don't know if you guys got the vibe, but it seemed a bit late for a comedy montage. That's what it felt like as he chose a body. Oh, I like that one. Oh, thumbs down. And I don't know. And even I think even the Byron, the friend of Tammy, even goes at one stage, I think this is a racial thing. Because even I was thinking to myself, some of the things he's saying yes and no to, that could be considered quite offensive.
Well, mind you, I think Byron trying to encourage Tammy to have Michael consider a female body, that was an interesting twist.
Then she's like, I don't want a female, I want a man. Sorry.
And then Byron's like, I don't want a girl. Me neither.
Because you've got to have gags like that the whole way through. I think that's pretty much all his dialogue was saying something like that. And of course, when they were lifting up the sheets and looking at the bodies, and I'm like, I bet there's going to be a reference to, and they bring the sheet up, and oh yes, he's very good.
Yep. But I mean, again, all we can really do is probably just if you talk about the insane things that happen, it's basically everything.
It was pretty much my jaw was on the floor most of the time. But I think, as we said earlier, once you realised the tone, you managed to go with it and realise, aha, cool. You know, not to take it too seriously.
Yeah. Well, especially after the car chase where they've got the dinosaur sticking out of the back of this truck, and they get to the lake so they can have that iconic shot. So iconic of her riding on the back, and as she's about to ride off, Byron just goes, "Hang on to your boobs," and she does.
I'm just glad we got to finally see her. I was thinking after the cover art of her riding a T-Rex, I'm like, she better have a shot of her riding it in the movie, even if it was that one that we saw. But yeah, it was quite interesting, all that, and the fact that Byron was the son of the sheriff, like how convenient, he could always sort of come in and sort of put his 2 cents worth in. But I don't know if I'm going a bit earlier, but yeah, Byron, I think they tie him up at one stage or something like that. The two cops get him, but the next thing he arrives to Tammy in the next scene. I'm like, how did you get away?
Yeah, well, his dad actually basically says to the deputies, cuff him.
I was surprised.
So it's just like, oh, he's... Okay, the dad's actually just arrested his own son.
Well, that was the other weird thing I got. Well, that's the other vibe I got about this movie, was because they were he was the token gay character. It was always funny being gay. It was almost like it was supposed to be a joke that the father was embarrassed by the son. So yeah, you just got to the point where you're like, this is a bit strange, but I'm glad he did manage to get away, even though we didn't know how he did it.
Yeah, I think the implication was they let him go so they could follow him, hence why they had him riding up to the barn, which didn't look big enough to hide a dinosaur, by the way, that barn. It seemed quite small from a distance, and when you got close, it was as big as a house.
It was a TARDIS barn.
A TARDIS barn?
A TARDIS barn, I believe.
Well, considering how... Well, I'm just remembering those early scenes with Helga and the scientist in that, when they're with the little scientist pushing all the buttons. I'm like, that was a pretty tall area. Yeah, it's funny that the dinosaur can fit. Maybe because he's always caressing his cheek on Tammy. He's always ducking down.
Yeah, and he goes inside and yells out, "Are you decent?" And she yells out, "Just a minute!" Like they're not decent. What's been going on? And they cut through to the scene, and she's there. She's fully dressed, wearing her still pristine dress from the day before, despite everything she's been through, and one of the dinosaur arms is just caressing her hip.
Oh, and I think she
just dusts off a little bit of straw.
Yeah, that's the thing. I thought to myself, I had a laugh about that because I thought, I bet there was more that was cut out from that. But I'm like, oh, okay, legitimately she'd have straw in her. But the way she was dusting off, there was more to that scene that I think it was probably good we didn't see. But I had to laugh. I don't know because she'd dare I say, she'd ridden Michael. That's a terrible way of saying. She'd taken a ride on the dinosaur. But I love how the deputy had to yell out, "Damn, that girl can ride!" just before we see that infamous shot.
Should have cut back to the dad and went, "Ooh, that's hot."
Oh no. But yeah, so we're at that point where I'm like, yeah, this can either go, because Trevor, we've seen a few movies where you think it's going to go one way and it just completely baffles you. And I thought, maybe it's going to go an unhappy ending where they do kill the brain inside of the dinosaur, and what's going to happen. So I was really quite unsure how they were going to end this.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, and this ties into this ending, throughout, there was a lot of stuff that they quickly... I don't know how Tammy worked out specifically that the doctor was the one that implanted the brain. I suppose she made the assumption, and it was all about, we need to keep these guys, we need to keep them handy. He's the only person that can save Michael and get his brain to another body. And then when he goes in to tranquilize the dinosaur, Michael just flat out kills him. Oh, well, that's not going to help you.
Yeah, I know. Considering, they'd gone through this huge rant. Yeah.
I love the discussion beforehand about the tranquilizer. They're like, how can you tranquilize him? He's a robot.
Well, that's the thing. That was the line that made me go, hang on, that robot dinosaur also could cry and do all these other things. So I'm like, anything's possible. But it just felt like a really, I don't know, not that I can think off the top of my head how they could have handled the ending, but it just felt like a really, a strange way of doing it. And you are thinking legitimately he's going to get killed and she's going to have to somehow move on. I didn't know what to expect.
But yeah, when he does get shot down, it's like that gets super depressing super fast. And I think even the deputies that were joining in on the firefight as he came out of the barn, they all shot him down. Once Tammy was there going, oh no, not Michael, they cut back and they're crying, and the dad's crying, and the state cops are all crying. It's like,
and Helga's crying as well.
Guys were just, Helga's crying too, and it's just like, you guys just gunned him down, and suddenly you're upset about it.
But then, okay, we've established this, but you think to yourself, what's going to happen next? Let's just say you're not expecting that last scene.
Not at all.
I thought I was watching a totally different movie. I felt like that just spliced on Denise Richards' home movies onto the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, the next shot where she's walking in dressed in white, huge smile on her face. I'm thinking, how long's been going past? Oh, hang on, there's something coming. And
why is there a video camera? I was so baffled. I'm like, why is there a couple of video cameras and she's talking to it? I'm like, have they put the brain inside the video camera?
Well, I think it was connected up to a computer or something. I mean, I don't think the nerdy glasses kid got killed, so maybe he set up the computer and video camera setup so that Michael could see and talk to Tammy for the very tasteful finale of the movie.
And they had to have the sight gag, of course, because the brain is just taking in so much sexual tension from seeing Denise that it starts to pretty much spark. I actually think the last shot should have been like a mushroom cloud of it just exploding, but I think that would have been taking the gag a bit too far. But it was just an odd scene. It almost felt like it should have resolved itself at the barn with the previous thing rather than having this extra thing. And I don't know. It's probably the thing that kind of, I didn't like.
If we did have that tacked on ending, we would have missed the striptease that Denise Richards does for the robot or brain or whatever the hell it is.
Oh, that probably got her next gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I found the striptease and the computerized voice of Paul Walker and the glowing around the brain. I think I actually found that the creepiest part of this entire movie.
And there's some creepy parts. Oh, yeah. And the fact that she just... What does she do? Did she add water to it or does something to it to kind of top it up? Or I think she just added water to it or something.
Oh, no, it was scotch. She poured scotch into the thing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, she poured alcohol over the brain, which I'm pretty sure isn't in the manual of brain care.
First of all, they're in high school as well, don't forget.
Well, maybe they did get the guy with the glasses, but to help. But you think he would have been maybe possible to do the body idea? Maybe they exhausted that and it just didn't work. Let's put the brain in water.
They were saying something like some frozen hikers had been found in good condition.
They're looking at getting some... Yeah, she was talking about what she heard on the news about some frozen hikers and...
Oh, see, I was
like, I'm going to go check that out.
How dumb am I? I thought it was just supposed to be like small talk she was making to fill the scene out.
When did these hikers get frozen? Because this entire thing apparently takes place in the sunniest summer ever.
I know, where it feels like it's the same day the whole time.
I feel like they said Mount Everest, but I'm not sure. I can't remember now.
Oh god.
I don't know. I think I was in. I think my brain was in shutdown and had to have scotch thrown over it to deal with it at this point.
I had smoke coming out of my ears.
Well, I knew not to expect a stinger for this movie, but I know Tim, the rule is always to have to watch till the end of the credits. I probably should have told you this before now, so I'm hoping you didn't cop out early. But yeah, you weren't missing too much. It actually sounded like a Melissa Etheridge song or something playing over the end credits.
Yeah, it was a halfway decent song, surprisingly, but I was looking at some of the titles and some of the names that came up for the soundtrack. I'm thinking, yeah, they really got the big names out for this one.
Anyone who does a dinosaur-themed song.
But, I mean, if you're a Jaded Heart fan, they had 3 songs on the soundtrack. There's He's Dead Jim, who did what's called the slow song. And, of course, Dinosaur Man, which was performed by Simon Stokes and the Black Whip Thrill Band.
Oh,
you
yeah.
better remember those
What
guys.
a name.
I wish they'd paid and got Walk the Dinosaur, but I think that might have been a bit too obvious.
They could not have. They wouldn't have been able to afford it. Basically, after the dinosaur and cocaine budgets, they wouldn't have had enough left to license that song.
Oh no, I can't believe we managed to get through the movie because there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, indeed. So, unless it was there anything else from the movie that anyone particularly wanted to mention before we move on?
Actually,
Ooh.
yeah, this is a hot tidbit I found. So, you remember going way, way back when Paul Walker was the dinosaur? That was most of the movie. When he was in the lab and coming to and realizing what's going on, and there's this pizza guy that walks in, and he looks really confused. He's looking, and he sees the dinosaur. Then the dinosaur growls at him. And he's like, "Did you order pizza?" After the dinosaur growled at him, and then the dinosaur growls again, and then runs away. So, fun fact: Denise Richards and Paul Walker weren't the only big names in this movie.
Ooh, I'm
dear.
intrigued.
You're intrigued?
Yep.
Well, so that was none other than Efrain Ramirez. Now, you might not know that name, but you'll probably best know him as Pedro from the Napoleon Dynamite.
Ah, I haven't seen it for a while, but that's interesting.
Yeah, that was Vote for Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite.
It's more like Vote for Pizza.
Yeah, that was his very first movie. He's
Wow.
credited as Pizza
Yeah.
Boy, and after that he did Jury Duty, where he was Pirate Pete's employee. But then soon after, he was in a classic, Kazam,
Oh, of course.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
good old Kazam, the genie basketball movie.
with Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh no, hard to think half these movies existed. Much like this
Yeah.
one, I suppose.
I didn't realise he was also in the Crank movies, the Jason Statham ones.
Oh, okay.
This is where the magic began.
Well, the only thing I was thinking during the whole pizza delivery scene was there was actually nobody in that lab to order the pizza.
Well, I think the scientist said to Helga, "Let's order some pizza," and then they order it and then leave. I was even thinking to myself as soon as they did that, I'm like, that's a bit inconsiderate. Are you going to wait? I don't know if they would do it. And I almost thought at first that they were doing it to actually lure the pizza man to the dinosaur, but what would the point of that be? Yeah, that was strange.
Then and we shall leave that mystery and I think start looking at our thoughts. So this is where we go through and actually discuss anything we found redeemable in the movie, and if overall we could consider this a redeemable movie. Now, Tim, being our guest, I believe it is only appropriate for you to take the lead on this one.
Oh, this is a tough one because there's just so much wrong with this movie. There's the tone is really weird. Like it's like it plays as like it's supposed to be like a big bubbly teen movie, and then all this really f***ed up and dark happens. There's murder. There's a guy gets his cut off, and they're shopping to a morgue. Christ, and there was just I just couldn't stop watching. There were some movies where my judge of a movie is whether I feel the need to grab for my phone or not. And not at all during this did I feel the need to. I just kept on staring and wondering where this thing is going to go. I think especially, just the first part that really caught me was when Billy first turns up and you realise how abusive a boyfriend he is. But yeah, I think it's redeemable. It's definitely a so bad it's good classic. It's definitely one of those. It's definitely a bad film, but there's something charming about its badness. I just can't really quite place it. It's a lot to take in.
Well, okay, cool. So Tim has given it a redeemable. So, Kristian, what are your thoughts?
Oh, wow. Well, I've definitely echo a lot of Tim's thoughts in that. Probably not as, oh my God, what is this as you? I think the moment it's sort of pretty much from the lines about the gonads and the interesting wrestling match at the start. The moment that kind of hit, you knew that it was a tongue-in-cheek type movie that was not going to take itself too seriously. And I sort of let a lot of things slip by, and I think it was, I was ready for the ride. But as we've mentioned, it was quite a light movie, but it's a shame about the couple of the heavy parts which we think may have been edited out. But and I honestly would say this was quintessential 90s direct-to-VHS fodder. This is exactly what I'd feel from a movie of this time. If you had released this in the 50s or 60s, I don't think this would have been out of place at all. It seemed to fit all of those tropes, and seemed to work. And I think that's what the filmmakers were very aware of by kind of paying tribute. They knew it was a bad movie, so it parodies itself very well. And as I've said, I think the dinosaur was probably the most expensive part of this movie, and that's probably, aside from the ending, which I'm a bit disappointed with. It didn't really know how to resolve itself, and I think that last scene with the filming was just unnecessary. There's something else could have happened. I don't know what, but it's one of those movies that you go to balk at it and go to, oh my God, what's happening? And then you realise, hang on, that's the tone of the movie. So very tongue-in-cheek. So I definitely would say this redeemable. I think with a movie that I know Tim said the secret with the movie is, not looking at your phone. For me, it's like, I'm so impatient. I'm like, is it going to entertain me? And do I want to watch it the whole time? I didn't get up once and I laughed the entire way through. So that to me is a redeemable movie.
Whoa, okay.
Whoa, no pressure, Trevor.
No pressure on me. Absolutely no pressure on me. Again, look, I've got to echo a lot of that, and I mean, really, there wasn't much filler in this movie, because I know a lot of times these sort of movies may be entertaining, but then they just have sections that drag on, so this certainly didn't have any of these, and I did find it impressive. I actually found it impressive that I felt that, I mean, she was nowhere near being able to be called a good actor, but Denise Richards managed to act like she cared for this animatronic T-Rex. It kept me going primarily due to morbid fascination and wondering where it would go, and if there was any places it wouldn't go. I am shocked that they didn't try to actually do a love scene between Tammy and the T-Rex, given what else went on, but as we know, there's the Italian print out there, which may have more than just extra gore, if you want to consider
Mamma
that.
mia!
Look, it's a straight-out trashy movie, and it's stupid enough to be fun, and yeah, not knowing what's coming next helps a lot, but at the same time, there were times where it's just like I knew exactly what was coming next. It sort of wavers between going via teen movie cliche and just craziness on a regular basis. And yeah, the tone really was all over the place. It's like, is it a quirky romantic teen comedy or is it something else? So I've got to look. I really did enjoy this more than I expected, and look, I'm not totally on it. I'm not too sure if I'm in a hurry to see it again anytime soon. But yeah, you're right. There is enough in here to make it worth a watch, and just sit back and go for the ride. So on that basis, look, I redeemed Mac and Me, the other big movie from this director. So it's 2 for 2, and it's redeemable.
Oh my god!
There you go.
Wow, I didn't think it'd be this one. And yeah, and I remember Tim Trevor did redeem Mac and Me. I think it was the best of the year for that one. No, the one that you enjoyed the most, or one of the most.
Yeah.
So-
I actually gave it one of my runner-ups for best movie we watched last year.
So there you go. There you go. We might have a new fan for the director. He'll be happy.
Yeah, I kind of want to track down more of his stuff, to be honest. It's some amazing stuff, and the fact that this is the least embarrassing thing in Denise Richards' life, like, to be honest, I feel like the most embarrassing thing Denise Richards has ever done is married Charlie Sheen, and the fact that this is less embarrassing than that is pretty good.
Well, I often think, well, you know, they managed to make a Fast and the Furious movie without Paul Walker being alive, and hey, well, they should just do another Tammy and the T-Rex. He's hardly in it. The poor guy, his first movie, and they're already killing me off. But anyway.
Oh,
They should have replaced Paul Walker with the T-Rex.
Oh, no.
Too dark?
Too soon.
Too soon.
I think we better get off. I think we better get off this
Yeah.
very, very quickly. We may have some very, very upset Paul Walker fans sending us hate mail. But anyway, so there we go. Look, I've got to admit, when I watched the trailer, even started watching this movie, I did not expect this outcome. So that's a pretty good start to the year, and a pretty good start to season 5. We all gave it redeemable. And, of course, as with all the movies we watch, redeemable or otherwise, there are some big fans out there. So I do like to finish on the most positive note I can find, and hence I've dug up another review. This one's titled, Dino Might Be Worth Your Time. Forget...
Oh, you gotta love a great... At least they've actually put the effort into making a really good review title, too. Sorry.
No, they did.
I do want to add, though, one job I had in the past was I worked at a museum, and one of the positions I had to do there was I had to jump into a giant dinosaur costume, and the dinosaur was called Dynamite.
There we go.
There you go.
Basically, I've lived this movie already.
Yeah. Oh, this is. I think the T-Rex from This Is Your Spirit Animal there, Tim.
I think so. Who'd have
Yeah.
thunk?
Okay. Okay. Review time. Serious face. Forget Fast and Furious. This is the best work of Walker's career. By transforming him into a silent T-Rex, they get rid of Walker's two biggest weaknesses, his looks and his awful voice. Walker's performance as a T-Rex is his most expressive work and a must-see for all his fans. Sadly, Richards is as terrible as always, and the rest of the cast is horrible as well. If I had made this movie, I would have turned everyone into dinosaurs and eliminated all dialogue, but it's still great. 5 stars.
Wow.
Honestly, their version of the movie sounds terrible. I could not imagine a 90-minute movie of no one talking and just dinosaurs doing charades.
It makes me think of the Wookiee opening of the Star Wars Holiday Special, to tell you the truth.
Oh, no. Oh, another travesty. Actually, this is a good travesty. if it can exist.
Absolutely. So, well, like I said, just to summarise, Tammy and the T-Rex, I can't believe I'm saying this, is redeemable.
Woohoo!
So, what we shall do is move on, and I hope you don't mind, Kristian, but I took the liberty of picking a movie for the next podcast.
Oh, no worries. I'm glad you did. I hadn't secured 100%, so I'm glad you have something to work with.
Absolutely. For our next outing, I thought I'd stick with a common redeeming features theme. So, you know, we got to make sure we hit the beats in our new season. So, sorry, Kristian, but I am diving back into the world of video game movies. I'm also staying in 1994.
Ooh.
This movie had some pretty big names, including a very prominent Australian of the time, but it bombed at the box office. I think it was meant to be a bit of a boon for Australia, as parts of it were filmed in Brisbane and on the Gold Coast. So the movie in question is Street Fighter, the movie.
Redeemable.
I knew this would come at some stage, and I knew as soon as you said features a prominent Australian actress, I knew who it was straight away. But yeah, I'm interested to see this because I do remember being a kid at the time when all the trailers came out, and it was going to be a big deal, and it kind of wasn't. So I'm really interested to see what everyone was seeing back in 1994.
And if anybody out there wants to watch Street Fighter before our next podcast, it's actually available to stream on Netflix in Australia. Or you can rent or purchase it through iTunes or the Microsoft Store. If you're outside of Australia, I'm sure you have a lot more options.
Oh, definitely.
And yeah, so there we go. Street Fighter.
Okay, gosh, from Tammy and the T-Rex to this. So we shall see.
Yep, yes indeed. So moving on, I mean, just to wrap things up, I'm sure we've all got fun things coming up. So we'd like to take a bit of time out to mention a few other things. So Tim, did you have anything you would like to plug?
Well, I guess the next thing that'll be happening is Kristian and I will be doing our next commentary cinema. That's happening on February.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be excellent, this one. We've got returning guests this time, which is something we've never done before. So we've got proper people that are actually seasoned in this sort of thing. Now, the next one will be in... so our guests that are returning are Jasmine Fairbairn, who was involved in the very first one called Samurai Cop, and we also have Simone Claire, who did Ape, A-P-E-E, which was a classic.
Oh dear.
And that will be happening on February 19th at Saccharomyces Beer Cafe in South Brisbane, and we'll be screening a classic, Andy Sedaris's Malibu Express from 1985.
Part of the Girls, Guns and G-String series. Need I say more?
I have heard about these movies. I haven't had the pleasure.
Oh yes. Let's just say, sorry to interrupt, Tim, but yeah, Malibu. Let's just say, Hard Ticket to Hawaii and Malibu Express are his two most infamous movies, and we're screening Malibu Express with Tim hosting. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're running the event too. You know, it's. Oh, but yeah, just based on the trailer, I cannot wait to see this thing. I can't wait to hear what our two comedian guests have to say about it. Should be a lot of fun, I think.
Sounds absolutely amazing, and I've actually been to the cafe, and it has my favourite pinball and favourite arcade game of all time. So it's very, always very tempting to go back there from time to time.
You'll have to go, Trevor, when we have a comedy movie night on.
I will definitely have to, I've got to make one of those. Awesome. Now, and Kristian, I'm sure you got a few things coming up in this new year.
Yes, lots of things programmed. This year I'm focusing a bit more on the movies, even though I know I normally do. But this February we've got some great classics like The Shining, Gone with the Wind, Empire Records, and then March like Footloose, Flashdance, Harold and Maude, and then we're going to be bringing back the 60s, 70s and 80s parties at New Farm Bowls Club. And in March, on the 23rd of March, we've got the Rocky Horror Picture Show with live floor show, which features two people as part of this podcast, but you'll have to come along to the screenings to see what that's all about. And yeah, it seems to be quite Rocky Horror mad at the moment in Brisbane, so tickets are selling fast, and grab your tickets for those. So got so many things coming up, so head to christianfletcher.com or Kristian Fletcher Events on Facebook.
Absolutely, and lots of fun things coming up there. Now, on the Rufus project side of things, there's quite a lot happening at our end. Of course, next week will be the return of the What the History podcast that I do with my wife Susie, where we take a couple of bizarre bits of history that will make you say, what the history? There's also going to be enhanced versions of the podcasts on YouTube. Very exciting. This should be, the YouTube version of this podcast should be available as you hear this, hopefully, if all goes well. We've got our new look 1 credit challenges moving again, and Kristian and I are working on a YouTube exclusive series for the Rufus project called insert movie The Game, which will be coming pretty soon.
Ooh, very exciting. We can't reveal too much just yet, I'm sure, but keep tuned for that.
Absolutely. So if you keep an eye on the Rufus Project Facebook page or find the Rufus Project on Twitter, that's probably a couple of good places to get most of the updates. So it's very exciting. Lots of stuff coming. A lot of less spare time for me, but it's worth it. Honestly. Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, so, well, Tim, again, thank you so much for suggesting the redeemable Tammy and the T-Rex and joining us on this season return.
It's been a pleasure. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.
Absolutely. Kristian, again, thanks for coming along for this ride.
Oh, always a pleasure, and I'm glad that we can launch the season with a redeemable all round. And thanks for having us, Trevor.
Oh, look, my absolute pleasure, and it's going to be interesting to see if we can keep the redeeming going, that wasn't a good sentence, next time around with Street Fighter the movie from 1994, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme and our very own Kylie Minogue.
I've always wanted to see it, so I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I won't be saying that
It's an
next
automatic
time.
redeemable for me.
Okay, and so I think that's the perfect place to wrap it up, so we will catch you all next time.
After 7 months of fighting, the civil war in Shadaloo may have reached the turning point. The capital has just fallen.
In December 1994, the forces of freedom will face a power-mad dictator in a struggle for the fate of the world.
Game over! Boy? Oh boy.
Is it too good to be bad? So bad it's good. What's this movie? Do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features.
Boy? Oh boy.
Kristian and Trevor on the case, watching movies from all over the place. IMDb says it's bad, but we want to know, is there fun to be had?
Boy? Oh boy.
Redeeming features.
Boy? Oh boy.
Hey, this has been the most easiest three-way to organise. I'm going to leave that right there.